PodSaaS, where we're putting the SaaS back in sassy. Sponsored by LeadrPro, where you can book demos with target customers on demand and fill your sales pipeline instantly.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of PodSaaS. Today we have Tom Kieley over at SourceDay. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. We like to start things off. If you want to share a little bit about, just what SourceDay is, what you guys do, and your target customers, that'd be great just to kind of get things started before we go into like the series of rapid fire questions.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity today. And SourceDay was created and launched in mid-2015 as a true SaaS network for supply chain procurement collaboration, which sounds really technically jargony and just a lot of buzzwords, but the reality is we eliminate what most organizations in manufacturing, direct to consumer and distribution do today, which is they cut their purchase orders out of their big ERP systems and then they go into Excel and email and back and forth manual collaboration processes to just hope and pray that their parts and materials and finished goods show up on time at the right price. Otherwise, they can't, recognize revenue and ship their goods to their consumers. Today's world, everyone knows supply chain is a challenge and an issue. We've been fortunate to be in the supply chain space for over 6 years now, and we're hoping our customers as big as Fortune 500 companies all the way down to consumer brands ensure that their supply chains are managed in an automated, real-time, collaborative, visible way so that there's true objective scoring of supplier performance and then helping them achieve on time and full delivery at the most seamless way possible while they can be strategic with managing supplier relationships rather than tactical and chasing their tails.
From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong here, just for like the lay terms, it's like that to build something, it requires a lot of parts. And to get all those parts from different people and different places all over the world, it can be a logistical nightmare. And so you guys come in and provide a lot more visibility around expectations around all those things. So whoever's building that product can build it in a timely manner and then deliver it back out to their customers.
That's it. I mean, in a nutshell, right? It's really 52% of our customers' purchase order lines, which could be tens of thousands of PO lines a year, change, whether it's a due date, a price, a quantity, a short shipment, an expedite, cancellation. Those changes all represent risk. And today they typically just go unmanaged or they're chasing them in Excel and email. And it's really unfortunate the archaic ways that supply chain professionals have been left kind of in the dust in terms of tools and technology and innovation. So our goal has been to really create what Salesforce did for sellers and the selling community for the buying community of manufacturers and product organizations.
Yeah, it's definitely like a very complicated, process in terms of like logistics. And I think even more interestingly enough is like your target customers are like not necessarily the most tech savvy people, right? Like at the end of the day. And so there's definitely its challenges to sell into them, but also like to have them understand the value of technology and why their processes are broken. I mean, I know like, yeah, even if you're building these amazing solutions, a lot of the time it's like in order for you to actually sell them, there's this hierarchy of decision making, right? And it's like they sometimes may not even realize that something's broken is the bigger problem, right? Yeah. Okay. We'll dive into that in a second here, but before we get there, we have a series of things we like to do here called just rapid fire questions. It's 10 really quick questions just to get to know you as a person, off the bat a little bit faster. Again, we want to try to bring personality and more of like a human context to the SaaS space. And so that's really the purpose of this. So if you're ready, we can dive into it.
Probably as ready as I'll ever be. I'm not good at rapid fire, but let's give it a shot.
Yeah, for sure. All right, kicking things off. Do you have a favorite entrepreneur?
Wow. Favorite entrepreneur. That's probably a tough one. I mean, I think like being in Austin and as loud of a voice as he is and kind of ups and downs, Elon Musk is interesting. I don't know if I'd call him my favorite entrepreneur, but he's interesting to watch. And what I do like about him is he's always challenging status quo, right or wrong. And, certainly a controversial figure in some areas, but, I think from an entrepreneurial mindset, he's done some things really well.
Yep, for sure. Favorite startup story?
Salesforce. I mean, when we launched SourceDay, it was really intended to be a lot like how Salesforce disrupted supply chain or sales operations.
Best piece of advice you're ever given?
That's probably don't ever quit too soon. In a startup journey, you could literally be one decision away or one customer away from really that difference maker, and it's so easy to quit, and it's so much harder to keep going.
1,000% true. Best piece of advice you would give your 18-year-old self?
Don't quit computer science. Whoops.
That's a good one. We did a podcast just earlier today too, where that was something that he had mentioned as well, which is like, and I personally can attest to that, not being a technical founder myself, like, the understanding of that element could go a long way. Even if it's not something that you're doing day in, day out, but being able to speak in that language is going to be largely useful for you to also understand, I think like the trials, tribulations, and the challenges of your dev team and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Being in a startup environment, obviously you run into a lot of challenges. So, what motivates you or pushes you through that 25th hour? Like when you guys are running up against a wall and, doesn't seem to be like a light in sight, how do you push yourself over that?
Yeah, it definitely can't be monetary. For me, it's really the company and the culture and the customers we serve. We've built SourceDay with the idea of always hiring the best people that can continually challenge status quo in terms of what we do and what our customers do. So doing, more every single day just so that our team members are, achieving their goals and that our customers are getting the value we promised them.
Any books or movies, even music, that inspires you or motivates you too?
I do love Start With Why, Simon Sinek. I think for any startup entrepreneur, he has a good TED talk as well, kind of around that whole thing you can watch rather than read in 5 minutes. But, it's just really the idea of why you do what you do and not really what you do. And that's probably it. Don't watch too many movies these days anymore. I do like to watch all those entrepreneur shows in Silicon Valley, but those hit too close to home now.
What's one of the worst jobs you've ever had?
I've really loved everything I've done because it's been intentional. I think if I had to compare all of them, I was a infant swim instructor at a very young age, and that was just, you got 6 infants in a pool and you're in charge of them, and none of them know how to swim, and it was just terrifying.
That's crazy. Very interesting. Given that was terrifying, is there any like takeaways or learnings from that experience that you feel like, you cling on to today from that?
Yeah. I think determination, right? Is just like, I was a swimmer growing up, in many teams, and it was kind of my passion. And I think, teaching those infants and young kids how to swim was just, I enjoyed that aspect of it, as terrifying as it was. But, that motivated me to keep doing it. That and I was, a broke teenager and needed the money.
So starting a startup is hard. We talked about that already. But it's also hard to balance your life out, your personal and your work-life balance. So especially if you have a family, have you encountered that? And what's been one of the biggest challenges of doing a startup, but also balancing your family life?
There's never a good time to start a business or a new career or an entrepreneurial journey. My co-founder and I both went through, life trials and tribulations. The week I quit my day job to go full-time into SourceDay, we were already a 2-year-old company with employees. So I was working nights and weekends, so we could pay, the technical people to build the platform, since I wasn't clearly able to do so because I quit that class. But my wife told me that we were pregnant with our 3rd and unexpected child, that next day after quitting my job. So, and you just kind of pick yourself up, and, there's no good timing. You never have enough money or time or preparation. You just, you got to be dedicated to do what you need to do. And that probably helped, motivate me even more to make SourceDay successful from what I could control.
That being said, leading to our last question is, what would you like your legacy to be?
I love the aspect of changing people's lives. I think creating SourceDay, we've had the privilege of employing over 100 people. Today, we've got about 100 full-time employees. And just seeing people that have come and gone through SourceDay, or even people that have been a part of SourceDay, watching them buy their first homes, get married, have kids, have grandkids, and watching their careers grow and get promoted either within SourceDay or in leaving SourceDay. I'm just a big believer in, giving everyone the best you can every day and helping them, improve their journey as best you can. So leaving an impact on others, I think, and we've tried to do that by creating SourceDay, and not just our employees, but also all of our customers and their team members and their companies. So love to be known for, having at least left some positive marks on other people's lives.
Cool. That's it for the rapid fires. So, I think it was just good to kind of get some nuggets here about who you are, and I'd love to dive into a little bit more about you. Before SourceDay, before starting this company, what was your career path looking like at that time? I see that you worked at Dell, and it seems like you've had quite a bit of tech experience in some shape or form. Maybe not directly, but in those industries. And so, yeah, tell me a little bit about that, and then leading to the point of making the decision to start SourceDay, and then I guess 2 years later, where there was some sense of stability or direction, making that jump to do it full time, right? It's always a big decision that requires it requires a certain mindset, certain DNA, I feel like. And so I'm always curious to dive into that, because not everybody has that, to make that jump. And for those that do, I'm always trying to understand, what pushes them to do it.
Yeah, no, long story, probably long, but I'll try to keep it short. I had a supply chain background from degree. Went into Dell for a number of years and worked in their supply chain facility here in Austin, Texas area, and learned a lot about supply chain and technology, and then proceeded to pivot careers into an enterprise sales, software sales type role, where I started to really learn that I just loved software and I loved technology. And throughout my college and early years, I continued to try to build companies. I started a construction company in the summers where I employed some of my friends, and we went and just built decks or cabinets or whatever we could find jobs for, fences. And I started building furniture and tried to build a construction business around that. But I couldn't get away from technology. So I started my first software company in 2008 called RightGift. I bootstrapped that nights and weekends while I was working at Dell, just recognizing that while I loved Dell and it was a great company and I learned so much from that experience, I was an entrepreneur at heart and I just needed to go do something on my own. So I just continually chased that dream. And so RightGift still exists today. It's an incredible journey to see it still running under a new CEO, and a little bit of a pivot of its journey, but still doing good in the world for charity organizations and helping with in-kind gift donations. So in that journey, I met my co-founder, Clint McCree of SourceDay, who had run a manufacturing company for 10 years and really had that original vision for, how to really transform and digitally transform the supply chain procurement industry, just through challenges he faced. So through my RightGift experience, my software, passion, and just entrepreneurship passion, he and I came together and bootstrapped and launched SourceDay, and went to market with it after 2 very long years of product development and MVP and twists and turns, and finally getting that product to market in mid 2015 and winning our first customer and having them mail us a check was just the most surreal experience ever. We had racked up credit card debt across the board, building and bootstrapping the solution, and then finally getting that first small check that wouldn't even really pay 1 month's payment on those credit cards. But it was great to see that somebody was willing to pay for what we had created. So we knew we were onto something, and just continually chased that. And it was, I had a day job, he had a day job. We were literally working, from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. most every night with our development team overseas, to get the platform to where it needed to be. So it's just passion. And I think for anyone wanting to go start the journey, whether it's SaaS or product or whatever it may be, consumer, you have to have passion for it. You can't just want it for a monetary reason. You've got to really love what you're doing. You've got to really believe in the solution and the value it's going to create.
Do you know where the root of it comes from? I know you're saying that you start a construction business and all these little kind of like random little businesses. I think like when you're younger, maybe in your early mid-20s and stuff. But anything before that, like, is there any like inkling of that when you're like a kid, 10 years old, like hawking lemonade or trading baseball cards or I mean, I see that too, like a lot of the times, right? It's like there's these like these founders now where it's like, they've always had like that problem solving mentality from a very, very young age. And I'm not sure if that's like something that you saw, or was it more of just like, hey, I see opportunities in these places and I feel like I can, I can make a difference or do something differently here.
Great question. I've always had this engineering mindset of problem solving and seeing something and wanting to, make it better or fix it. I was always hands-on in a wood shop, or construction, working on our home or other homes with my father or building furniture for myself or customers, just always wanting to, problem solve and create. And I think, through all of that and just through my journey at Dell, and then in addition, my father worked for a large number of entrepreneurs through his career, mostly tech SaaS type or consumer B2B type companies, but always in tech, whether hardware or software. But he was always, the CFO to these entrepreneurs. And I would see their journey as entrepreneurs and the companies grow and succeed and exit or create hundreds of jobs, sometimes thousands of jobs. And just watching that growing up was just an incredible experience. And I was just wanted a taste of that myself, and thought it would be in construction at first, but then got into tech at Dell. And that really, drove my journey to Right Gift and then SourceDay. And, I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
And tech is a little bit more scalable than construction is. So you got that too.
I noticed. Yeah. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Fair enough. That being said, you talked a little bit about, the early days with SourceDay, 2 years, right? Like grinding it out and stacking up the credit cards. And you talk about that. I mean, that's real life shit that, not everybody knows going into it. We hear a lot of those stories afterwards, right? But like going from there to now, like, you have 100 full-time employees that, their livelihoods are riding on something that you started with your co-founder. Like it's a pretty stark contrast, right? In terms of like places to be from say 5-6 years ago to today. Do you ever take a moment to really kind of like sit back and be like, damn, that's a big difference, and like, being able to like actually absorb it for a minute? I know like, we always feel like as entrepreneurs, we had never like hit the destination. There's always so much more to do, but that in and of itself is a pretty big accomplishment that a lot of, startup founders don't even get to, when you look at the percentages. So
no, it's incredibly surreal. I mean, it obviously didn't happen overnight. There's no such thing as overnight success. And no matter what you read or hear or see, right, there's something behind the scenes that, my wife and our families didn't ever really know how much debt we had truly built up building SourceDay. But we were chasing a dream that we believed in, and there was always fallback to a career in enterprise software sales if I had to. But, I think we just continually chased this, and it was just a passion, to want to change supply chain. Again, the archaic processes that exist in that ecosystem, just needed disruption. So we came together, and for me, it was a journey with a lot of help. I enlisted advisors, people that had been there, done that. At every turn I could get, I would just approach people, reach out to people, people that were successful in their career, whether it was an entrepreneur or just a, corporate operational executive where I could, get nuggets from. So I brought in advisors from all kinds of different industries and ecosystems and hired an executive coach, so just constantly trying to improve myself, and trying to always avoid the imposter syndrome that definitely does hit you. And then I and my co-founder are always telling our team members, like you just said, it's very few companies that truly get to a Series B and beyond type growth, and compared to the whole. So, I challenge them every week when we do our all hands, say, take a step back, look what we've created, and, be proud of it, learn from it, share it with your friends and family, and give back to other entrepreneurs through your experience. So it is hard though sometimes to take a step back and actually think about what the team has created. It's pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I commend you. It is when you look at percentages from like a day one to getting to where you are, like, I mean, you're probably like within the top 2% of companies that probably started at the same time you guys did, right? So it is very difficult and challenging to get to where you have been. So any stories that you have, that you care to share, like even in those like hard times, like, because I think a lot of the things that's, we hear a lot of these success stories, we read the TechCrunch articles, like, and I think like there's a misconception around like, there's no overnight successes, even though like the media loves to spin them as that. It's like 10-year overnight successes, right? So, which is more of the reality. But I think like, any stories that you care to share, like, where maybe a super difficult challenge that in the moment you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but now in hindsight, obviously, like was a great learning exercise or experience for you in maybe, those early days of like those first 2 years?
Absolutely. There's a number that come to mind, but, I can remember, I've shared this one recently with another company I was mentoring, but we were a 6-person company, and a Fortune 50 high tech organization found a video on YouTube about what we do, and they were in an RFP with much larger multi-billion-dollar companies that were going to try and build a little bit about what we do to solve this organization's problem or opportunity. And they were still struggling to find a solution that really fit their needs. So they found us on YouTube. It was a perfect fit according to them. We were, again, a 6-person company. This is a Fortune 50, $30-40 billion company. We hadn't raised any money to speak of. We were in a garage warehouse, and my co-founder and I had to go to the only trade show that we ever went to at that time, which is where we got all of our leads for the rest of the year. And they had asked for an on-site customer demo that same day we were going to be gone. It's like, we can't afford to not go to this trade show. So we sent our, junior, had been with us for 2 months, sales rep. He was one of our only 6 employees. We didn't think there was a prayer that we would get anywhere past the first meeting anyway. So, we didn't believe in ourselves enough that we could take that solution down or even win that business. But, and we had to make a decision, we're going to risk that one deal for all of the leads that we're going to carry us for the next year. So we went to the meetings, the conference, my co-founder and I, and we sent the sales rep, and, I'd be damned if he didn't come back and say, I think we're going to win this deal. And 6 months later, we won the deal. And it was our first 6-figure annual contract value customer. And, today they're in their 4th or 5th year of using SourceDay, and, one of our largest customers. And just it taking that customer on with just 6 to 7, 8 employees seemed like a juggernaut that we were never going to succeed with. But we believed in the team and the platform, and the solution was the perfect fit for their problem and what they were trying to solve. So incredible partner and customer for us today that still speaks highly of our solution and the value. And had we not taken that risk or that chance and that opportunity, we definitely wouldn't be where we are today. So I think you always have to act bigger than you are. You always have to have the vision of where you want to be, not where you are, and take on not all customers, because not all customers are the right customer, but if you can fit it, and if it fits within your strategic long-term vision, don't think you can't win it just because you're a 6-person company.
That must have been like, I can only imagine, when you're talking about getting that first check mailed to you, to then this situation where you have Fortune 50 company deciding to go with you guys. Those 6 months must have been like,
it was brutal.
Yeah, I can only
I
imagine what it
mean,
must have been like in those 6 months. And then actually, what did you guys do when you found out that you won the deal?
well, I think that's when we actually started to get really scared, because then we actually won the business and we had to deliver. No, I mean, we absolutely, we went out and celebrated with that customer, and then we went and celebrated as a team, and then we proceeded to raise money from that contract, our first kind of convertible note, that we ever raised. And that really propelled us to future rounds and future growth and hiring. I think the initial shock was, incredible. We won it, but now we have to go execute and deliver on the value, that's when kind of the scare factor kind of hits you. But having the right people, to execute on the vision, that believe in it, make all the difference in the world.
And I think you also start to realize too, like, again, maybe you didn't finish that class on engineering, but you do realize that, anything can be built, right? So it's like, it is a little bit scary, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of like sitting on a winning lottery ticket that's up to you to cash it in or not, right? It's like, and it's just like barreling down and then making sure that you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, but you got it. It's right there. So that's crazy. It's an amazing story. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about that. Like, I just remember like doing my first startup, and then we get your first like person to transact on it and like accept that first payment, that first credit card transaction or whatever it might, however the transaction comes in. It's a crazy feeling to go from like, and I don't know how to share this with people who haven't gone through this, but like taking something from ideation to actually having a physical product or service and then be able to get somebody to transact on it. It's just it's a crazy feeling because it's just like, people are buying what was just an idea originally, and now it's like actually coming to fruition. And that's just like obviously the first baby step to kind of getting to these bigger deals. But yeah, that's awesome. Um, and and from that experience, how long was it from you guys when you guys started to then closing that big deal?
We were probably, an 18-month-old company, in market, but had less than 20 customers total. So still very small, very early. Could barely keep the lights on. I remember, shortly around that time of the legal negotiations on that deal, a time where I wasn't able to pay, myself or and some others on the team. We were able to win the deal and then retro back the back payments to others, that the sacrifice that gets made to get to that point is real, and it takes the team to do it right, not just founders, not just executives. It's everyone, collaborating and just going after it together.
How do you inspire or motivate, people to do that? Because you have to sell them on the vision, right? It's like at the end of the day, I mean, most of the people who are within like the first, I'd say like 20, 30 hires are like believing into a vision, not necessarily like, oh, this is for a salary and this is not for a paycheck, So they're there for a purpose, but you have to sell them on the purpose and the vision. So how, what was that for you? Um, and what was that? Yeah, how did you pitch that, or how did you sell them on that vision?
To me, it's a lot like, fundraising, when you're recruiting and hiring team members early on. Even now at our stage, you've got to recruit the right type of person, somebody that doesn't want to be at a Fortune 500 company. They want to be at an early stage company. They like that risk. They like that, that just speed of execution, and being able to see the value that they're creating in their own work. Yeah. And that just is all the difference in the world. So, hiring, those types of people with relevant experience that want that early stage hustle and grind, and some of the ups and downs. It's a true roller coaster, sometimes multiple times a day, feeling up, ebbs and flows that almost sometimes feel like, at the bottom you're doomed and there's no way you recover from this, but you just keep pushing. And if you have the right people, they'll continue to push and follow along with you. And I think a big piece of, my leadership style is complete transparency. I've always been, weekly kind of town hall, all hand meetings where it's fully transparent, all the way from financials to fundraising to, where are we on target or not. and what do we need to be executing, better or more successfully on. And if you can give people, the trust to give them that kind of visibility, then they'll go to war with you every time, right? But if you're not transparent, if you're not giving them ownership or visibility, and even ownership in terms of options, right, where they actually have ownership in the outcome, those types of things should come with trust, that you do trust them to have, all of the data you have to help them, feel more ownership in making decisions and doing what's right for the company. So it's, I think, ultimate transparency, not to a fault, but to a point of where people can be empowered to execute without blind trust.
Yeah, that's makes a lot of sense. Yeah, just another, the previous guest that we just had earlier today spoke about the same thing, to the point where, every morning they share all their sales numbers, their cash flow statements and all that kind of stuff with their entire team. And yeah, it's which is strange because I haven't seen that level of transparency until these two conversations, with the other previous like 20 conversations that I've had so far. So, but I do find that having integrity in that way is a very critical part of forming the right kind of culture within your organization. I think, like, to that point, what kind of culture have you looked to build? I know you're talking about, finding those people who are willing to hustle and grind too, and are willing to invest, their blood, sweat, and tears into the company. But how do you find those types of people? Are there certain personality traits that you look for? Are there certain questions that you ask for in the interviewing process? How do you filter those types of individuals out? Because I know from my experience trying to find and hire, like, we found our kind of like little ways and tips and tricks and tactics, but I think everybody has their own. So I'm curious as how you do that.
It's certainly a challenge. I mean, hiring, especially in this market today, right? It's just one of our biggest challenges is really hiring and recruiting, the right type of person for our stage of growth, and to get us to the next stage of growth, not just today, but next. So for us, I put a big emphasis on just having a personal, human conversation. I don't ask typical interview questions. I generally just, have them ask me all the questions they have, and I don't ask a single one. And that lets me kind of see what their brain is processing, and what they're worried about, and what their concerns are, and someone coming into an early stage company should already have kind of the knowledge of what the risks are, right? And they should have some pretty prescriptive questions, around those risks to the CEO or to an executive that would help you understand, are they going to be able to thrive, or are they going to be constantly, worried about, what's going wrong in the company? Early stage, I also am very focused, requiring, that they've had at least one other early stage startup experience where they were able to experience the early stage at some level for some length of time, 2 years or so. So it's not a total shock to them. We do hire quite regularly right out of college or right out of high school even, where they may have no clue what it's like, but, we get comfort with their passion for early stage through some of their earlier life experiences. But I think it's crucial to have, organization that is driven around challenging status quo at every level, at every role, and then also having, complete peer-to-peer accountability and collaboration. So internally, we require everyone to really kind of give monthly updates at each department level, each team level, so that everyone kind of knows what's working, what their challenges are, what their struggles are, and how other departments within the organization can really help pick up pieces where something's not working well, or maybe they have some nugget of information that was beneficial. So very clear, transparent collaboration and teamwork is critical. And our culture is really, defined now at our size, in my eyes, by the individuals that make it up. And we intently hire people that, love to work around the community and give back to our local area, and love to, completely disrupt and create change for the better in our customers and their ecosystems. We have a mantra around the business that was started by a customer that we call Change Lives, where a customer many times over now has called us and said, "You've been able to change my life by letting me go home early or on time because I'm not manually entering data or chasing suppliers down for changes in parts and deliveries and procurement issues." So the Change Life mantra has been something that throughout the organization, everyone is focused on how can they change lives internally and with customers and partners to continually drive our mission. So it's a culture that's created by every individual through teamwork, collaboration, transparency, and peer-to-peer accountability.
On that note, I think we can wrap things up here. I mean, I think it's been really great and insightful to get a lot of your insights again around specifically. I think like what I gather, from this conversation and just your personality in general is like as somebody who just wants to make the world a better place. I mean, as corny as that might sound, that's really kind of like my takeaway from this is like, you have this. And I don't know if like there's a certain experience or anything like that that really leads you to that path that's led you to that path. But that's really what I see. I mean, from some of the personal things that you're just talking about to really like the culture that you've instituted to today. And I think obviously that's part of how you that's really part of your growth trajectory and that growth story, I think, is really that idea of like having a social good component as part of the overall mission has been a big part of your success. And there's a lot of ways to kind of get there in different ways and different formats. But I think for you specifically, like this, that idea of like giving back and being a part of that process has been a big part of the formula for you. So it's great to hear that story and great to see it and kind of like coming to action and fruition.
I appreciate the time today, and it was great to get to know you and appreciate the questions.
Thanks again for joining us, Tom. And best of luck to everything SourceDay. It sounds like you guys are doing great things. So I just wish you the best of luck in your continued growth. And we'll see you on the stock exchange, I'm sure, someday soon. So.
There you go. Let's see. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.